Hi, this is just the keynote of Game the Brain, and I am going to demonstrate how to navigate the file that you get when you buy our book, Namespace Combat, which gives you a number of um, Blender spaceships. So when you first open the file, you're greeted with this image. Um, this red, explaining the GUI, this red outline means it's locked on camera view because uh, the most often reason you would want to set this up would be typically to change the angle of the ship. Okay, so this is not what. So this view is called. This is just a basic unrendered view. So this is closer to what it'll look like once the ship is going to be previewed before render. So this you have to select the rendered display. So the previous display was called the solid display, and viewport shading. This is the one where most likely you would work with, so that it's not a huge drain on your resources. So I'm using middle mouse button to pivot this. If I select the hull and I press number keypad period, it will center, so I can center the object. So uh, having centered the object, I will um, change the angle. So I can select the lights, and lights currently are set on sunlight, one of the brightest settings. We can call this, we can angle it to have better lighting. So we go to the to the rendered view. So you'll notice I'm adjusting the shadows a bit, so I can make the shadows lengthen by changing the angle of this light. So yeah, so object manipulation. So this is move, which is the shortcut key is G to grab. Um, Rotate. So you don't really rotate this because it's a light. You can rotate objects. Uh, so I undid that, and yeah. Uh, so it's mostly moving it, and rotating it would be key. Later on, you could scale it if you want to shrink, or we'll use the other controls later as I show how to customize your ship with decals. Okay, um, now that we have um, now that we have uh, updated call this can change and manipulate the view, we can now render at different uh, we can now render different angles of the ship. Let's try exploring the ship a little bit more. So to leave this camera view, I press number pad 0. You can so leaving the camera view is can be using the GUI would be using the camera, active camera, and then what you call this, pressing active camera again, so it changes to undo this. So let's work uh, with call this what they call this view, material preview. So let's select the hull. So you'll notice over here, I'll expand this so that I can emphasize this. These are the decks of the ship. Call this. Let's so the hull, the ship's hull is a particular collection. So each box is a collection. So this is the hull. If you want to hide it, you can press the I button, but it'll still render. So if you want to not, if you don't, you want to avoid it being rendered, you have to disable the camera button. So let's okay. So when I select an item and there's all these collections, the clue, how I find the item in which collection, is by looking at what is highlighted. So I select this item, you'll notice this is uh, uh, highlighted. Example, I select the hull, this becomes highlighted. So it's 20 objects. I select this, the upper deck gets highlighted. I open upper deck, I notice that the front selection is the one that's highlighted. So that means it's somewhere in the front selection. And I find it here. Turret missiles, turret missiles, turret missiles, turret missiles. So it looks like all the turret missiles are placed in the upper deck. So let's move it. So uh, call this. So to move it, I just drag. Using the mouse wheel, I go down to the hull and drag it. So now these are part of a different collection, which will be very useful later on. Okay, so the middle section is set. So there's the rear section, they're set to render. Normally, you don't need the other sections to. You don't need other sections to render. You don't need them to render or be visible when you're just doing the hull. So it saves on the system's resources. Okay, so let's just hide the hull. So you can deselect the entire hull and the the internals of the ship show up. So you can deselect the upper deck to peek into the middle deck, and then the lower decks. So you can unselect these. So this it makes them both invisible and unrenderable. Uh, so why would you do this? Probably you'd want to tweak around the ship. You select so the assets here are pre-made. Nico Solonga made the assets so that it's easy for us to move around. So each so this is around 1D ton. So this life pod is around 1D ton, and you can imagine call this each uh, line here is roughly a meter. Uh, for ease of imagining, especially yeah, for ease of imagining. So let's view the floor. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's roughly a meter, but the floor here is at 1.5 meters. So it's set up to be call this traveler compliant scale. Okay, so this you can do screenshots of this, zooming in particular areas. Uh, if you need to talk to your players about or work with the GM about particular details of the ship. Uh, okay, so let's customize the ship a bit. Other than the layout, the most easy ways to customize a ship is giving it logos and decals. Um, so I made some logos using DALI, and I'm sure that you can find many AI assisted logo systems there. Um, I don't include the AI generated content in our books because I'm worried about being deplatformed. So, uh, but here in the tutorial, we're using it just for demonstration purposes. I don't want to get tied up by copyright strikes or whatever. So, um, for this exercise, first we're gonna create a decal. So first we'll have to do is uh, call this set something that's not usually in default, which is image to plane. So we went to preferences. So I went to edit, preferences, import images as plane. So you just type image, and then this is one of the only uh, add-ons that come up. As soon as you click the checkbox, it's now active. Now let's import it. So to import it, use the add, use the image, use image as planes, and I'm going to add this simple logo. So uh, so it's here. So this is where we're going to use the other controls a lot. So you can see it's pretty small. So let's get it bigger. So I used scale, S, scale. Or I can use this. And on this axis, on this Z, X axis, I got it bigger. So there, it's pretty big now. And then I will, I think I will place it here. This huge open canvas. So I'll use rotate again, and I will change view. I'll change view. So I press control so that it'll snap. It'll snap incrementally, and I will project it here. So if it's a very flat surface like this, um, it can be as simple as just putting it there. Um, okay, so let's but that's but if there are some bends, some imperfections, then it won't be sufficient. So call this. So what we can do, what we can do is use shrink wrap. But first, we'll take this. So we're using the logo. Let's have a collection just for the logo. So have a new collection. Let's call it logos. And let's drag this to the logos collection there. So in the logo, call this, we can give it modifiers. One of the modifiers we do is subdivision surface. So subdivision surface adds geometric complexity. So we first convert to simple and make it even more complex. So let's turn off capital card. So there, ooh, yeah, it looks very smooth. It's a maximum. So let's put it simple. And what you call this? After putting it to simple, I will apply a shrink wrap modifier. So this will paste it onto the ship. So now that this thing has a shrink wrap modifier, sorry, I got my wisdom tooth removed just yesterday. Uh, okay, so it's having these artifacts. So we'll fix the offset a bit. So it's a tiny bit offset. But at the angles that we're going to render, it hopefully isn't visible. So you'll notice it ripples a bit because of the ship's surface. So it will stick to the surface as much as possible. Okay. So that's how we can create um, uh, the logo. So let's call this, let's make a duplicate. No, sorry, before the duplicate, let's look at how it will look like rendered. Oh, wow, it's washed out. Okay, it's washed out because it's very reflective. So let's go to the materials. Let's look at the roughness. So roughness determines how uh, how reflective it is. So we want it a more matte finish. Okay. So okay, Uh, now that okay, now that the ship is now that I fixed that, we can start duplicating the logo for different parts of the ship. So we want it probably in the front. So selecting something, we press Shift D. So sometimes it doesn't click immediately. Shift D, and we created another copy. Let's make it much smaller and bring it to the front. Okay, that doesn't seem to work. Let's let's go back. Let's remove the shrink wrap modifier. Shrink wrap modifier. And probably call this realign it. Oops. Okay, you'll rotate it along the X axis. Let's view it from the X view. Looks correct. It's hard to tell. Okay, let's go back to this view. That way it's easier to see. X looks correct. Uh, Let's move it down a bit. And move it down a bit. And I guess we can try. So since it's at a particular angle, a little bit. We want it when someone sees it full on, they see the logo. So we'll try the shrink wrap again. So we'll select the hull, and it looks like the hull is distorting the logo. So when this happens, yeah, try to avoid putting logos there. So the better place to put the logo probably would be on one of the doors, not right up front. Okay, now that we've created a logo, um, and okay, so call this. Let's go back to the camera view. So camera view is 0, as demonstrated, and I don't know if I demonstrated it. I can't keep track anymore. You use go to render and press render to render the image. So so it will render the image and then it'll draw over the drawing lines for effect. So let's give it a few more seconds. It usually takes 17 seconds with this RX 550. It's taking longer than before. Uh-oh, I think I made a boo-boo. Let's cancel that before it crashes. I think it's because I gave it so much to render. Let's not have those other things visible and rendering as I render the hull. Of course, it'd be great. It's best to save as. Then let's try rendering again. Hopefully, it doesn't crash. So here's the time. Okay, so you'll notice that there are lines where the logos were. So that's not ideal. Okay, so let's fix that. So To remove the lines in the logos, we go first to the render set, to the output properties. Sorry, not, sorry, the view layer properties, and we look at we are in the freestyle line set. So we're in the freestyle line set, and we look at collections. Let's exclude logos. So having excluded logos, let's render again. Hopefully the logos don't render any lines. So last time it took 10 seconds to render. How long will this take? Okay, so the lines did not render this time. Okay, so if you were to animate the ship, and of course you move the ship, the logos won't follow. So we want to parent the logos to the hull. So we will select the logos, control select the hull, go to object, parent the object. The hotkey's not working for me. I don't know why. And then do the same. So you'll notice the object hull. Sorry, object parent. And then logo. Select the first the child, then the parent, then object. So now we have two objects parented. So what happens is, if the hull moves the the children, which are the logos, move along with it. Okay. So I guess we've covered a lot. Call this okay. So if you wanna avoid the camera's view, we can press 0 again. So we covered the GUI, we covered navigating the collections, we covered changing. Did I cover changing the color? So we go here to materials, and if I want the base color to be blue, or I just need to do it there, or I can undo it, or just make it gray. So this is one of the ways you can change the material color by going to materials. You'll see if you mouse over, it's materials, and changing the color. We covered, more importantly, decals, which is the object that most likely make your ship distinct, and how to apply them, and of course, like, how to apply them. Hopefully this is helpful in navigating the Blender file and customizing your ships, which is the intent why we made the ships available. Anyway, hope you guys give us any feedback, correct us, and I hope the sound gate is not broken and this recording is going to be uploaded. Okay. Have a good day, guys. See ya.